I used to think love was a sound, chairs scraping before dinner, cartoon theme songs from the living room, a chorus of "Dad, look!" echoing down a hallway that always needed to be swept. I thought if I could keep that sound going, nothing else would matter. So when the first quiet came, it felt like a power cut in my chest. I came home from a run to Louisville one afternoon early. The meeting I'd flown in for dissolved in a conference call, the client's boss traveling unexpectedly, which is code for the decision got made without you. A storm was rolling up the river and the pilot said we'd thread the hole between two cells. I liked that image. Thread the hole. Like you could hang your life on it. The key turned cleanly. I pushed the door open with my shoulder, grocery bag swinging, suitcase wheels bumping over the threshold. The house smelled faintly like cinnamon and rain. I was thinking about chicken and rice and how the younger two refused peas unless we called them green pearls, and how I used to laugh at myself for that, but the trick worked every time. On the entry table, the wedding photo in the white frame was face down. The glass had a hairline crack I hadn't noticed before, like a spider had walked across it and scratched it with spite. Beside it lay Michelle's ring, a small gold circle, not extravagant because we never were. "Babe?" I called out, keeping my voice low, a habit you learn in houses with kids who nap. No answer. From the living room I heard the whisper of TV voices pulled down to one bar, the kind of hush you use when you're waiting for someone to leave. I stepped in and saw the plaid throw pulled up to a pair of bare feet I knew as well as my own. Michelle's feet. Her toes were painted the color of afternoon skies, a joke she'd made at the kitchen table with our niece, who declared the shade unicorn blue and insisted everyone wear it. The couch sank in the middle with the weight of two people. My best friend since middle school, Matt, sat upright at the far end, hands pressed flat to his knees like he was trying to pin himself to the present. "We thought you'd be back tomorrow," he whispered. His voice cracked on tomorrow, and that's how I knew everything before anyone said the words. Michelle's face rose out from under the throw like the moon pulling out of clouds. Her eyes were wide and then small and then wide again. She tugged the blanket to her neck, even though I'd seen every scar and freckle on that skin. "Connor," she said, like a question. "I always dreamed of a family," I said, and set the grocery bag down on the coffee table because my hands wanted to do something. "You just broke it." Nobody spoke. It was quiet enough to hear the fridge motor click on, one of those small domestic sounds you never notice until you do. Outside, thunder rolled like a truck crossing a bridge. "I can explain," Michelle said, which is an unkind thing to say when the explanation is a knife. "Don't," I said. I wasn't angry yet. I was in the long hallway before anger, where the lights flicker and your mouth goes dry and everything you look at seems suddenly important. There was the watercolor our oldest, M, made last year of 3 sunflowers. There was the dent in the coffee table from the time our foster son, Derek, tried to test gravity with a toy hammer. There was the baseball cap on the arm of the chair that didn't belong to me. I picked it up and turned it once in my hand. It said, Cincy in big letters, Matt's team. The cap had sweat rings where a forehead had made a home. "You need to go," I said. The words came out like I'd pulled them off a shelf. "Now." "Con," Matt started. "Buddy," I said, and hated the word while I said it. "You need to go." He stood, and the couch sighed. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Michelle. He walked to the front door like a man walking into a strong wind, and then he was gone, the door shutting behind him with a soft slap that made me wince. Michelle pulled the throw tighter around herself and stared at the rug. The pattern had always made me dizzy if I looked too long. "It's not," she started. "Don't," I said again, because the second time I said it, I felt a sliver of control return to my body. The kids weren't home. Em was at a study group for her A-Push retake. Derek was at soccer with my sister, who'd taken him because practice schedules are easier when you're an octopus. Our nephew, Jamie, had a playdate and a backpack full of plastic dinosaurs. We'd taken him in last year, long-term guardianship, a sentence that felt both warm and heavy. His mom, my brother's kid, was doing better. And better is a word that lets you sleep at night if you let it. I asked you 100 times to free yourself, Michelle said finally, voice thready. I told you to go find a life that didn't fit like this. You stayed. I stayed because I meant every word I ever said out loud, I told her. She nodded, like a nurse checking a chart. She works at the hospital front desk, knows how to keep her voice steady when people crack. A storm popped close enough to rattle the window. For a second, the whole room went white and then blue and then dark again, like a camera flash you didn't agree to. I was only gone 2 nights, I said. How long has this been going on? She flinched. That was when the anger finally found me. Don't do that, I said. Do not flinch like I'm hurting you. I'm not, she said, eyes flooding. I'm ashamed. Good. The word dropped like a stone to the floor between us. Shame isn't a bandage. It's a sign that your skin still feels. I want to be very clear, I said. And my voice did that thing where it goes soft at the end, not because it's weak, but because it's holding something back. I am not going to scream. I am not going to throw anything. But you don't get to live here after tonight. We have kids, she whispered. We do, I said, and they will not hear us tear each other apart. So we are going to speak like people who chose each other once, and then you are going to pack a bag and call your sister. When did you get so calm? She said, almost a laugh. When I realized our front door camera has you and Matt on it at 2:13 p.m. and again at 11:22 last night, I said. When I realized the wedding photo wasn't knocked over by a breeze. Her hand went to her mouth, not to hide anything, just to hold it in place. Our doorbell camera was old and fussy, the kind that sometimes sends you a 30-second video of a shadow you have to squint at. But it worked fine when people used the front door with their faces, a dumb, small fact to build a boundary on. I turned it off, she said. The alerts. I turned them off. That doesn't erase the footage, I said. It doesn't erase me either, she said. I'm still a person in this house. She was right. She was wrong. Both. I sat in the armchair by the window and looked at the backyard where our cheap plastic slide had tilted into the mud like a sinking ship. The tulips M planted were already done for the season, little stalks with nothing left to show. I took a breath and found the voice inside me that still loved the sound of chairs scraping and kids shouting over cartoons. Tell me the truth, I said. How long? 2 months, she said. Off and on. You don't get to say off and on like it's a hobby, I said, sharper than I wanted. 8 weeks, she said, eyes closed. I broke it off last week. He came back. He said he wanted to check on me. I said, okay. I shouldn't have said okay. He's my best friend, I said. He knows I've wanted this life since I was old enough to name anything I wanted. I know, she said, and the way she said it made me see every old wound of hers too. The year she sat in bathrooms after injections and prayed to a God she didn't quite trust. The 6 times we smiled at sonogram screens and saw nothing but static. The time she told me to set myself free, and I told her freedom without her, didn't taste like anything. The day we met M in a quiet office painted with clouds and the social worker said, "Are you ready to be parents?" And I said yes before she finished the question. "You told me to leave you," I said. "But you didn't tell me you'd leave me like this." "It wasn't about you," she said. "It was about feeling like I still had a body that wanted anything." "That is about me," I said, "because marriage is a town without private roads." Lightning cracked again, the kind of flash that turns the world into a negative. I stood and felt my knees pop. I'm 45 years old, which is young enough to run upstairs if someone asks and old enough to feel it the next day. "I'm going to take the kids to my sister's tonight," I said. "You can stay, or you can go, but you will not be here when they wake up. They'll ask why. We will tell them together, when it is not raining and I'm not carrying a suitcase. Connor, she said, I am sorry. Okay, I said. Now get your bag. She went upstairs without looking back. I watched the ceiling as her footsteps crossed the bedroom and the bathroom and the closet and back again. Creaks, I could mat blind. I stood by the table with the downturned wedding photo and turned it face up. We looked like two people who had just been granted a long summer. She had flowers in her hair. I had a sunburn on the back of my neck. In the photo, Matt was to my left, his hand on my shoulder, his smile wide enough to swallow the sky. The kids deserved a story that wasn't just a picture turned face down. The days after are a blur. I can still list in order because logistics is a religion I practice daily. First call, my sister. She said, "Say it," and I said, "Michelle and Matt," and she didn't swear, which is how I knew she had expected the world to do something like this at some point. Second call, my boss, who said to take whatever time I needed, which in corporate means the time you need if nothing else will break without you. Third call, a family therapist line. A coworker had slipped into my hand last year after telling me about his divorce and how his son started sleeping with the closet light on. I said the words, 3 kids and we adopted, and long-term guardianship, and the woman on the phone said, I have an opening Wednesday at 4, and I said I'd be there. Evidence arrived without knocking. Our bank app showed 2 DoorDash orders tagged privacy requested, both to our address during my flight out. A neighbor texted me a photo of a red truck parked in front of our house at 10 a.m. A truck with a dent in the front fender from the time Matt backed into a mailbox in 10th grade, and we spent an afternoon with his dad sanding and repainting white stripes into red. My daughter, who is too wise for 17, asked if Uncle Matt had any mail come to our house by mistake because she had found this. This was a pharmacy bag with a receipt tucked inside for a morning after pill paid in cash. I sat on the edge of my bed and turned the receipt in my fingers until the ink blurred. I did not go nuclear. It wasn't magnanimous. I was too tired. I changed the Wi-Fi password, partly because I needed something to do that felt like control, and partly because it's good hygiene. I canceled the streaming service. Matt's profile still sat on. Silly little avatar grinning at me every time we clicked in. I called the locksmith, because small rituals matter. I wrote down questions for the therapist like a man making a grocery list for feelings. How do I tell them? How do I stop my hands from shaking? How do I keep the anger from leaking onto kids who did not hurt me? Wednesday, 4 o'clock. The therapist had a tabletop fountain that made me need to pee. She asked me to say what brought me in, and I said, the thing you think won't happen when you choose a friend, like a brother, and a woman like a house. And she nodded like I was reading from a common menu. Tell me the pieces, she said. The evidence, I said, because the word felt like a net. Ring on the table. Wedding photo turned down. Doorbell camera. DoorDash. A receipt. My neighbor's camera caught the truck. My daughter asked a question and didn't make me answer. What do you feel when you say all that? She asked. Like I'm filling out a bill of lading, I said. Wait, destination, contents, hazardous, yes. She let me sit with that until it wasn't funny anymore. Later, she talked about the difference between justice and revenge, about how men in my situation often left the room with their insides clenched around a need to make it even. She said the thing the internet says too. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Indifference, it turns out, takes work. Michelle moved into her sister's house on the other side of town. We wrote an email to the kids together because speaking stole our air. In it, we said this: we love you. We are not okay. We will tell you as much as is helpful. No more. None of this is your fault. You did nothing to cause it, and you cannot fix it. We will be parents to you every day, even if we are not in the same house. We did not mention Matt. I would tell them that part when I had language that didn't set their world on fire. When I did tell them, weeks later, M said, that makes sense. which broke me in a quiet sideways way because no 17-year-old should have sense for that. I stopped seeing Matt. Or rather, I started seeing him everywhere except in front of me. Matt at the gas station, laughing at a joke I used to know. Matt on the Little League field, yelling, "Ball 4," like he invented counting. Matt in the grocery store with his hand on someone's shoulder. He called. I didn't answer. He texted, "Can we talk?" And I read the 3 words over and over until they meant nothing. He sent an email that began, "Friend," and ended, "I am sorry." And everything between those words was exactly as true and unhelpful as the apology itself. I bought a small house because our big one made my voice echo. It was on a street with maples that made a tunnel of the sky. The kitchen was narrow, and the oven looked like it had cooked only frozen pizza since 1999. The first night the house clicked and thumped and sighed, old bones settling around me. The second night, I learned the neighbor's dog barked twice at 11,003 and once at 12,002, reliable as a timetable. I woke at 3,001 with my heart trying to kick its way out of my chest. I had the old impulse to call Michelle and tell her bad dreams pass if you sit upright and breathe together. Instead, I walked to the fridge and opened it and laughed because there was nothing inside but mustard and 3-string cheeses. I made a plan because plans are the only prayer I know how to say. 3 nights a week the kids would be with me. 2 nights with Michelle. Weekends we'd alternate. Sundays were mine because I needed a holy day even if the church was just our kitchen. I bought a griddle and learned how to make pancakes that didn't glue themselves to the spatula. I learned bacon burns fast and a smoke alarm will declare war. I learned you can make scrambled eggs in a slow, soft way that feels like forgiveness. The first Sunday, I dropped a whole carton of blueberries. They bounced and rolled and hid under the table, and Derek laughed so hard he fell off his chair, and for 30 seconds, we were 4 people in a room where nothing bad had ever happened. There were setbacks. Em looked at me like the grown-up she is and said, "Do you hate Mom?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Do you hate Matt?" And I said, "I'm working on indifference." And she smiled a smile I recognized from pictures of me at 17 and said, "That's very dad energy." Derek threw a soccer ball through the basement door on purpose and then cried like he'd hit a person. I had to teach Jamie to tie his shoes 3 times in 1 week because his hands got jittery when he was tired. One night, after Michelle picked them up, I sat on the edge of my bed and sobbed into a towel like a man who had never learned to be noisy. There were also small victories that didn't look like fireworks. I took all 3 to the grocery store and walked out with everything on the list and nobody crying but me, a little, in the frozen aisle. Em asked if she could invite 2 friends over to study and I said yes and remembered to buy chips. Derek forgot his shin guards and we drove back home and back to the field without fighting. Jamie fell asleep on my chest on the couch and drooled, and I didn't move for an hour even though my arm went numb because his breathing was the only ocean I wanted to hear. Months passed. Seasons turned like pages. I kept my job. I am good at boxes and routes and making sure a thing gets where it says it's going. I stopped reflexively checking Michelle's Instagram stories, which is a kind of healing I didn't know to expect. The therapist told me to write down new things I could hold, so I made a list in the back of a notebook. It had items like first pancake not burnt. Derek's tooth fell out, and he asked if the tooth fairy still comes if houses change. Em got a 91 on her test and hugged me without warning. Jamie learned the word mahoganies because he likes the way it feels in his mouth. Michelle asked once, in the parking lot of the clinic where Jamie goes to speech on Tuesdays, if there was a way back. Back to what? I asked. To us, she said. Her eyes were clear, not a trick question, a human one. There's a way forward, I said. It doesn't have the same door. I know, she said. I'm not asking for a door, maybe a window. You knew my best friend since I was 13, I said. He broke his wrist falling off my bike. We buried his dog together. He taught me how to change my oil, wrong. You chose him in a way a person can't unchoose. I chose something that felt like heat, she said. I haven't felt it since the chemo. I wanted to be a person who wasn't just scheduling. I know that doesn't make it right, it just makes it honest. We were standing under a tree that dropped yellow leaves like confetti. Jamie came out holding a sticker and a lollipop and shouted, "Dad!" with his whole body. I caught him midair and Michelle laughed the way she's always laughed when joy jumps high. For a second, if you squinted, we looked like a family on a postcard. I won't throw your life in a river, I said. I won't badmouth you to them. I won't be the man who uses kids as weapons. But no, I can't go back to us. She nodded, and we both stared at the place where the shade ended on the sidewalk. She reached out and touched my sleeve the way you test a fabric before you buy it. You're good, she said. I'm trying to be, I said. Tell me one thing you've learned, she said. And it wasn't a challenge. I can flip pancakes without a spatula if I commit, I said. And that I can love you as the mother of our children and not the woman in my house. Her face did a little crumple, and then she stood tall and said, "That's very you," and we both smiled because we knew what that meant. Matt left 2 voicemails over those months. In one he said, "I don't know how to be a man in this," which made me bark a laugh because the answer is, do one thing that hurts you and helps someone else. In the second he said, "I'm going to propose to her," and I sat on the tailgate of my truck outside the roastery loading dock and listened to the sentence twice. I didn't tell the kids. It wasn't my news. It wasn't news I wanted to be holding in my hands when they walked into a room with open faces. 6 months later, my house feels like mine. Sunday mornings start with a bang of the cabinet door I still haven't straightened. I make the batter in the big bowl and let Jamie stir until his whole arm gets into it. Em plays a song from her phone, usually something sad and soft that makes me say, "This sounds like rain on a tin roof," and she rolls her eyes and says, "You have metaphors now?" Derek cuts strawberries with a plastic knife and announces, "I am a surgeon," and we all cheer when he gets a clean slice. We eat at the table that got a new life with a coat of varnish. I watched too many videos to learn how to apply. The chairs scrape. The cartoons still play sometimes, even though they're too old for them, because old comfort has a long half-life. They laugh like they used to before the picture frame turned over. They laugh in a way that doesn't look sideways to check if they're allowed. When they're with Michelle, I run on the path by the river with a podcast in my ears until I realize I haven't heard a minute of it. I grill chicken like a man auditioning for a version of himself he can keep. I sand the corner of the coffee table where a dent used to bother me because it looked like a wound. I plant mint in a pot and water it too much, but it somehow lives, a messy little green crowd that smells like something clean when you crush it in your hand. Some nights, I read messages in forums from men who sound like I did on day 1. They write from trucks and offices and dark apartments, asking strangers if the way they're hurting is normal, if what happened to them counts. I type back quietly. You're not weak for staying. You're not a coward for leaving. You can make a breakfast. You can make a new sound in an old house. Hold the kids close and don't hang your pain on their shoulders. Make small decisions in your favor every day. You will not always shake. In my worst moments, I imagine Matt's face at a wedding again, hand on someone else's shoulder. In my best, I picture my kids in front of a stove that works, laughing. The best moments are winning now by inches. That's what healing looks like. It's not a parade. It's a man learning how to tip the bowl with one hand so the batter slides just right. It's a girl passing a test she thought owned her. It's a boy learning to say mahogany because he likes the weight of good words. It's a nephew in a dinosaur shirt telling you, "You're funny, Uncle Dad," and you are, for once, in the room to hear it. The picture in the white frame from our wedding day sits in a closet now. I didn't burn it. I didn't hang it. I couldn't make it face the wall forever either. Some things you don't erase, you place them where they can't trip you. The ring she left on the entry table went into a drawer with the batteries and the tape and the unsorted bolts. I open that drawer a dozen times a week. I barely see it anymore. This morning, the maple tunnel outside is green, like it invented the color. The griddle is warming. The kids are still asleep, and I can hear their breathing if I stand in the hallway and close my eyes. The sound feels like a promise kept by someone with my voice. If you were me, would you have stayed one more night to hear an explanation you couldn't unhear, or is leaving the room the first act of protecting what's left? If your best friend broke the life you built, would you demand a room to accuse him in? Or is silence the boundary that finally puts you first? Like, comment, and subscribe for more true to the bone first person stories of heartbreak, quiet strength, and the homes we rebuild when the old ones fall down.